We're going to start today in a seated position, and I want you to have a couple of props. You'll probably want to have one block. No big deal if you don't, but you'll probably want to have one block. And there will be a little bit of myofascial release that we do, so you'll want to have one ball. In a pinch, you can kind of do this stuff with the corner of the block, but just a simple tennis ball will be great for this. Now, I recommend one that has some give to it. You don't want a hard tennis ball. Not all tennis balls are the same, but this one has just enough give, as you can see, that it can be firm but not harsh. A little extra bonus point, put it in a sock, and that will prevent it from flying across the room, and that will prevent it from, if you get some skin-on-skin contact, it will probably just feel a little nicer. I'm also a big fan of squishier balls, so I like the silicone ones, I like the rubber ones that are out there, but I really like also the inflatable balls for myofascial release for people who have more pain than average. And that's because fascial release is really working with our nervous systems. This is what we know to be true of fascial release. It's really working with our nervous system more than with the actual muscle located specifically where you're targeting. So these are soft and sweet and can butter up to your nervous system a little bit better. So whatever you got, let's start in seated. The first technique I'm going to teach you is called contract relax, and it's essentially just contracting a muscle and taking advantage of the moment that that muscle relaxes, in which the Golgi tendon organs give this advice and give this feedback to the nervous system that everything can chill out a little bit. So hands to your thighs, we'll see if you experience this as well. So hands to your thighs, if you have any gap between your knees and the floor, become aware of that. And if you don't have a whole lot of a gap, that's okay too. You're going to place your hands on the inner thighs and press your inner thighs close to your knees, is where your hands are. Press your inner thighs up just a little bit for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that just activated your adductors. In this moment of relaxation, you might be able to give just a little bit of a nudge and notice if they are a bit more relaxed, if you feel a little bit more comfortable in this position. Usually a few rounds is helpful. Press up into your hands again for 5 seconds, maybe a full round of breath in. And then big exhale, shake it out a little bit. We'll do one more of those, contracting up. It doesn't have to be the biggest contraction ever, it can be a pretty soft one. And relax. And then we'll go into the opposite. So now we're going to do something called reciprocal inhibition. So if our target today, and we will be playing with half moon pose, so we're going to get into that a little bit later on in the practice. If our target today is to have some length in our inner thighs, we're going to want to give the inner thighs that information that they can relax, that they can be quote unquote open, by also activating the outer thighs. So reciprocal inhibition, you're going to scoop both of your hands under one knee and just push that knee back down towards the floor. This activates your external rotators of that hip. Because we're working on the reciprocal muscle, the antagonist versus the agonist, versus antagonist, you are actually inviting your nervous system to relax the adductors or the internal rotators by activating your external rotators or abductors. So we'll do that 2 more times on this side. 5-second hold. And one last time. 5-second hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Shake it out a little bit. We'll scoop the hands under the other knee. And again, push the knee down. For any of you guys who are a little bit uncomfortable sitting cross-legged on the floor, relax for a moment. This is a great one to do before you sit for meditation. Push the knee down, external rotators and abductors activating, relaxing your inner thighs in the process. And push it down. And just notice if anything feels a little bit more easeful through those specific techniques. We're going to do a micro meditation. So just to get ourselves a little bit more comfortable, go ahead and grab your block if you have one. A throw pillow will also be fine. And slide it under your bum. Arms by your sides, smooth out your legs, your leggings, and roll your shoulders back. Either close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or have them halfway closed. We're stacking the ring of the ribs, the bottom ribs, over the ring of the pelvis. The top of the ribs, you can also think of that as a ring, and you can also think of your skull as a ring. Let all of those rings, pelvis, rib cage, skull, stack. If you have a tendency for your low ribs to jut forward, draw them back. If you have a tendency for your head to jut forward, draw that back. Noticing your breath. Take this moment of quietness to acknowledge any thoughts, maybe phrases we've said out loud about open or closed or tight hips. If you're somebody who identifies as having tight hips or tight hamstrings, I can tell you that the majority of my patients and clients who are yogis and yoginis actually have more range of motion than average, sometimes more than they really need or would benefit them. But that doesn't change an internal subjective feeling of tightness. What I want to invite you to consider, however, is that if you are someone who identifies as having tight hips or tight hamstrings, maybe they are objectively normal or even more range of motion than normal. And maybe that subjective feeling is something we could examine and explore other ways of relating to if stretching alone hasn't given you relief. Soak in those thoughts, those meandering ideas, and on your next inhale, scoop the palms together into Anjali Mudra. Big exhale, lower the hands, open your eyes. We're going to set the block off to the side and start with myofascial release. So grab your ball, whichever one you have, and slide it under one bum. So we're just going to get into the center of the glutes as well as piriformis, or our lower external rotators. And the way to find piriformis is there's a little bit, everybody has it, whether you can feel it right now or not, a bony spot on the side of the hip. And we're going to go from there, imaginary line from there to your sitting bone, and just glide the ball right into that line. The bottom of the glutes is your piriformis, right at the bottom more or less of the glutes. Bottom, middle. And we can add a little bit of contract, relax here, where you're bringing your opposite hand to that knee, pushing the knee out, so you're activating collectively your external rotators of your hip. And as you relax, the muscle will have more give, and you'll be able to sink the ball a little bit deeper into your bum. Let's do that one more time. Press, contracting that muscle. As the muscle relaxes, you'll feel it sink in a little bit more. Start to oscillate. just shaking, wiggling, and maybe even plowing through a little bit. And then we're going to take it to the other side. So go ahead and, this is why I recommend putting it in a sock. Go ahead and slide the ball under the other hip. Get to the bottom of the glutes on that side, maybe feeling the line between the sitting bones and the greater trochanter. Scoop your opposite hand to that knee and push out and try to activate that muscle group. Just about a 5-second hold. It doesn't have to be 100% of your possible effort. In the moment of relaxing, notice if the ball can sink through your tissue a little bit deeper. Oscillate, just shake. Maybe do a little bit of plowing where you're really leaning in and slow rolling up into that zone. And slowly unwind and relax. So we'll set the ball off to the side for now. There are more great techniques that would be good to close a practice with. But for now, our hips are probably a little bit more open than they were before you sat down. We're going to lie on our sides and move into the strengthening or targeted strengthening component of this class. So you can feel free to use your block under your head for a little bit of support, like a pillow. Think still about the stacking I talked about earlier. Ribs over pelvis, head in line with the ribs and the pelvis. And go ahead and bend your knees so that they're about 45 degrees. Your hips are at about a 45-degree angle. Knees are neither straight in front of you nor parallel, but just halfway in between. Hand to the top of your pelvis. Suction that top hip back. And just this act of imaginary suctioning is going to start to turn on some of the stabilizing muscles of your hip. Open your knee as far as it will go without letting your pelvis move. Hold it there for a couple of breaths. And then when you're ready, add your foot so that your shin becomes parallel to the ground. Active foot, lower your knee, lift your knee, lower the heel, lift the heel, lower the knee, lift the knee, draw on the belly, draw on the ribs, lower the heel, lift the heel. Feel free to move your hand as we go back and forth to the location where I moved mine, which is to my abdomen, so that I'm staying stable and sturdy in my trunk. And let's just do one or two more. So knee down, heel down, knee down, and heel down. Lift up and lower down. And make a loose fist with your hand and just give it a nice little shiatsu. Straighten your leg out in front of you now, and it's still going to be on that 45-degree angle. And you're going to turn your toes down and dial your heel up. So now we're really targeting the gluteus medius. Draw your belly in, kind of stabilize at the trunk, and lift and lower. My toes are turned down a lot, and that action is coming mostly from the hip. I'm still thinking about that suction idea of bringing the leg deeper into the socket. And we just have 3 more of these. Stay connected to breath, aware of a softness around the face. Relax. Make your loose fist and go ahead and shake it out a little bit. All right, press on up and let's get to the other side. So if you want more open hips, if you want that feeling of tightness to go away, we're finding our 45-degree angle at the hips here. Suction, stabilize. Pelvis is still. If I wanted to, I could even use the wall behind me to let me know whether my pelvis were to rock or not. So if you happen to have a wall nearby or the back of a couch or something along those lines that you can use to give you some feedback, go for it, because we can't always tell when our pelvis is rocking. So a couple thoughts. Draw in, do your suction action, lift, take a breath, stack your ribs, lift your foot, and then lower the knee, lift the knee, lower the heel, lift the heel. What I was about to say a moment ago was that there is a feeling of tightness is very often accompanied by an absence of full strength, which, to put it in different terms, you might be strong in a particular range of a muscle, like from your biceps where it's around 90 up above a little bit, but you might not be very strong in the first few degrees of bending that elbow or bending all the way up to touch your shoulder. Let's do one more. Knee down, suction, heel down, lift, and then settle it all down. Make your loose fist and go ahead and shake everything out. Sort of shiatsu massage the glutes, the whole region. When you are ready, straighten out your leg. Make sure it is halfway between parallel to your trunk and 90 degrees, 45 degrees more or less. Toes turned down, so I'm taking my big toe down to the floor and then lifting it up. If you didn't move your bottom leg, by the way, from your earlier 45-degree position, you can just kind of match thighs here. So line up your thighs. Notice if there's anything you can soften. Notice if you dropped into a default position of your torso, or your ribs stuck out, or your head went forward, or any other variation. And just play with this strengthening, this isolated strengthening, which, by the way, is the shape of the leg in Warrior 1 and Warrior 2. Last one. Settle, draw the knee in. I'm going to need another one of these. I don't know about you guys. Let your breath be easy, and we're going to come onto our bellies for just a moment of nourishment for the hips. Keeping your pelvis rooted, glutes squeezed, bend one knee and let the foot fall across and out to the side. And then release and bend the other and let the foot fall across and out to the side. Definitely take note if your whole pelvis is moving, and try your best to let this just be internal and external rotation of the hip. Make your way onto all fours, connecting to core, drawing your knees right underneath your hips, bring your toes to touch, and start to rock back and forth. This, in physical therapy speak, is called quadruped rocking, so table pose in yoga. And this is one of the most fundamental developmental movements that we look for in the progression, the physical advancement of a child, right? So coming back through to center, I want you to straighten one leg directly out to the side. Now I realize this is a big movement, so if that doesn't feel good to your hips right now, here's a great alternative. Prop the knee up on your throw pillow or on your block, and you'll get the same kind of inner thigh dynamic mobility that I'm suggesting we all get, but without any strain. So if you have the ease of ability to put your foot out, go ahead and put the foot out to the side. Don't worry if your pelvis is squared to the floor or not. That doesn't matter here. And just rock back and forth a few times. Adjust where your leg is so you can feel the inner thigh spaciousness perhaps happening. And then from here, rise up into half kneeling. So the weight is through the standing leg. You're going to come into this proposal position, what I like to call the proposal position. So use the glutes of the standing leg, knee points out, and then start to bend and straighten into this. This is a bit of a deconstructed warrior two shape, Virabhadrasana two. So drop in, open the arms out, embody that spirit of warrior two. And then rise right back up. We're going to settle the hand down on the other side. Straighten out this leg. Bring your top hand to the waist or to the side of the pelvis. And by the way, your bottom hand can be on a block if you'd like. And now just lift and lower this leg. Your extended leg comes up almost to hip height. And then go ahead and leave it up. Draw in through the core. Reach your top arm by your ear or up to the sky for fallen half moon. This is a fun variation, especially for anybody who has ankle challenges or doesn't like the bigness of the hip in the other position. Lower, rise, come back through to kneeling, and then fold your hands down to the floor. Find table pose again, rocking back and forth. We're going to stick the other leg out to the side. Don't forget the option to put your knee on the block. This is such a great variation where you get the same exact benefit to the hip without any strain on the knee or the foot for that matter. So do what feels best for your body in this moment. Noticing your breath. And then you're going to come all the way up. If your knee's on the block, go ahead and just set your foot flat to the floor and start to bend in and out, moving towards a fallen or deconstructed warrior two shape. As you drop in, float open the arms, create length in your neck, activate through your fingertips, gaze past your front fingers. Lots of fun breadth, broadness here. You can also think about stacking your ribs here. If your ribs like to jet out, draw them in, ears back, connect, and then go ahead and straighten this leg. Lower your other hand to the floor, option to have your hand on the block, and top hand to the waist or the side of the pelvis. Lift and lower. Keep the back of the neck long. Keep that stacked feeling. Both of our hips are actually working here pretty hard. And the more you drive with the heel towards the ceiling, the more you'll get glutes rather than hip flexors or TFL engaged, tensor fascia lata. Keep this leg lifted. Deconstructed half moon. Chin tuck, turn towards the ceiling, ribs in, float the leg, energy through the fingertips, energy through the foot. And then come on down and rise right back up. Let's find our way back to kneeling. Another one of the things I love to play with these days is multiple ways of getting on and off the floor, ideally without using our hands. So if you need to use your hands, try to keep it to one hand. I'm going to show you that variation first. One hand, one foot, other foot, and rise, right? I'll do it in reverse. Knee, knee, and back. If you want to try a different way, I'll turn in profile so you guys can see. You can experiment with moving from this position, so sort of a Vajrasana with the toes curled under, to this deep kneel, deep squat that is, Malasana, straight up to standing Tadasana. Just to experiment. I'll show you again. So all the way down into Malasana, all the way forward, this is in reverse to Vajrasana, and back. Scoop it in, open out, rise it up. It's a work in progress, so don't worry if you got it just yet. So set your feet apart, and then we're also going to have a little fun, just doing a bit of flossing Instead of adding the arms, we won't bother to coordinate with that. This is the floss, right? It's a little bit complicated for the arms. So just floss the hips alone. A little sassiness side to side. Get this movement happening. And then we're going to turn towards one edge of the mat. I'm going to turn towards where my block is. Go ahead and wiggle your feet a little bit further away. Bend and straighten your front leg. And I want you to experiment, or just to take stock of how your hips feel in this position as we creep closer and closer to something that looks like Warrior Two. And again, it doesn't have to be the deepest Warrior Two. I don't even believe in saying that cue, go to 90 degrees with your front leg, because it's a big old pull on that back leg that most of us are not ready for. And drop in just to whatever level feels good for you. Open up soft shoulders, active arms, gaze past your front fingers. Try stacking your ribs. Try keeping it a little bit dynamic. Lean into that back arm and notice your obliques. And then land the hand lightly, maybe even no weight at all in that hand, to lengthen your front side body. We're on our way to half moon. So first, rise up your toes in front, straighten your front leg, glide the hand down, maybe to the shin, a little bit of a triangle pose. Again, a hint of sassiness just for the fun of it. And then I'm going to wiggle back a little, set my block 10 inches in front and out to the side, and use all of the techniques we've done, all of the openness, to activate back leg, spread toes, open chest. Nothing feels like it's pulling. I hope that's true for you. If not, reverse, hit rewind on this video and come right back into it later on with more warm-up. And then slow motion, this is a good challenge. Come all the way down as slowly as you can. Right back into Warrior Two. Straighten the legs, shake it out. Wiggle your feet back towards one another. Go back into whatever interpretation of flossing is good for you, feels fun for you. And we'll take it to the other side. So set up your block if you're going to use it as I used mine. And start to wiggle your feet further apart, preparing for Warrior Two on the other side. Warrior Two is a really nice preset, pre-pose for half moon, because you're getting a lot of the same actions in the pelvis, that quote-unquote openness. One leg's going over here, one leg's going back here. You've got a lot of that abduction and external rotation happening. So bend and straighten. Find the Warrior Two that feels challenging but comfortable, truly comfortable. Stack the ribs. Front hip points up. Glutes engaged, yes. Float the arms, soft shoulders. Appreciate your Warrior Two, your Virabhadrasana Two. And then lean into that back arm. A little bit of a dancing warrior, lots of obliques, lots of length in the front body. And we'll take it forward, something that looks kind of like triangle pose. So triangle pose is a pose where I hear a lot of hips popping. And I want you to notice and pay attention if your hips normally pop, if they did, with this amount of hip preparation, which may or may not be enough for you in particular. So just notice if it was enough to reduce that sensation of popping. And from here, block is going to be about 10 inches in front of your front foot. So set that up and a little out to the side beyond the pinky toes. Drive into the front leg, float the back leg, straighten, straighten, stack, stack. Now I'm talking, by the way, about stacking through the spine. Ribs over pelvis, ears over that. It is actually impossible unless you have very, very shallow hip sockets, something called dysplasia, which you don't want if you don't have it, to stack your pelvis here. There might be an energy of rotating the front of the pelvis forward or even towards the ceiling, but it's not going that way. It's not going to actually stack unless your skeletal shape allows. So no forcing, just stay connected. Now your ribs can stay stacked over your pelvis regardless of skeletal shape. Full breath in, and then bend your knee and build that strength to slowly lower down the arm, counterweighs the back leg a little bit. Find yourself again in Warrior Two. And then all hands down. If you'd like to take a vinyasa, go for it. If you want to just see how your body feels in down dog, play with that. And one of the things you may have noticed, settle down to your knees wherever you are and take a seat again. As you went into the position of half moon, if you took the knee down position, you would not have noticed this. But if you joined me for the standing position of half moon, you might have noticed that you had a pull not just on your inner thighs, but all the way down to your inner calves. So I'm going to show you one final technique with the ball that will serve as a bit of a cool down and a continuation of the quote-unquote opening of our inner thighs. You'll place the ball to the inside of your calf. Toes are going to be facing forward, right? So that you're just plowing through the medial aspect of your gastrocnemius. You can also find a spot if your foot's not resting completely on the floor and do a little bit of movement, mobilization with movement by pointing and flexing your foot. If you feel that you have chronically tight inner thighs, I strongly recommend strengthening through your arches and doing myofascial release along that inseam side of your leg. So if you were feeling the pull down through here in your half moon, this is a really good technique to temporarily open that space up, reduce that sensation. But long term, you want to work on strengthening this guy. We'll take it to the other side. So go ahead and place the ball underneath the inner calf on your other side. You do this little plowing technique that I'm doing here. You can find a spot that feels really good and point and flex the foot. You can go anywhere in the calf that feels good to you. The thing about myofascial release as a mobility aid or technique versus stretching is that this kind of myofascial release, it's not putting your joints in any kind of potentially compromised situation. Whereas I do think that there are positions of stretch, especially cycling back to individuals who feel tight when objectively speaking there is not tightness there, who could then be putting their joints in positions that are not healthy or sustainable for the long term, right? So we'll just take another couple of breaths here. Rocking through the tissue on the inside of the calf. And then go back to your original position of seated, maybe sitting on the block if, like me, you appreciate that little booster seat. If you habitually have one leg that you put in front, switch it up. Smooth out your pants, your leggings, your thighs. Stack your ribs over your pelvis, ears over the shoulders. And settle in. Notice if you feel a little bit of warmth in your body. Notice if the ease with which you're sitting is a little greater than at the beginning of our practice. You might notice if you feel a little bit of relief, that you don't have to stretch your hips to create greater fluidity and mobility. That there are other ways of providing nourishment. As we take the last couple of moments to tune in and focus on breath, the rhythm of breath, I invite you to lie down if you prefer for Shavasana, or to stay upright with me. Finding ease in the stacking if you remain upright. I invite you to stay in Shavasana or meditation longer if you wish. Just hit pause on this practice. If you're ready to emerge, starting with a little bit of movement, perhaps in your fingers or your toes. Trust your body to move in a way that feels organic and free. Over the next 10, 20 seconds, rolling to your side. Keeping your eyes closed and slowly making your way back to seated. We bring our palms together in Anjali Mudra with deep thanks to our own physical health in this moment, our capacity to get on and off the floor. We offer deep thanks to the teachings and the lineages of yoga and science as well, anything that has informed our practice. And we give deep thanks to all the teachers who have opened our minds and enriched our lives. Thank you so much for being here.